Mr. Otto, and this video will help you with item number 2, the body of the passenger section of the Automoblocks part. So this is for activity 5.2b, item number 2, and we're going to draw up this passenger section here. So let's see how we got that started. So first of all, where do we get the drawing from? I'm going to be using the drawing from the T9 Dimension Drawings 2016 or later. They're all pretty much the same. There's some minor differences there. So I've got that open down here. This is the drawing that I will be referencing throughout the video. So if you're curious where I got the dimensions from, check out this. If you want to print out of this to set next to your computer while you're drafting, just let me know. I'd be happy to print that out for you. So let's go ahead and get started. So it says here, begin by sketching a rectangle and then filleting the corners before extruding. So we're going to sketch a rectangle here, fillet the corners, and then extrude it back. So that's the plan. Let's go ahead and make that happen. So I've got a new part open here. I'm going to go to the XY plane. I'm going to, now normally I would say we want to sketch from the origin, but since we're going to fillet first, we don't want to stick it to the origin, so I'm just going to come out here into space and draw this rectangle. I want to be 3.16 inches wide by tab, 1.52 inches tall, tab. Let's double click the mouse wheel and zoom out here. So that's basically the geometry that I want. I'm going to hit escape to get off the rectangle tool. I'm going to go up here and fillet, and according to the drawing, so if we look at the drawing, these radii are 0.3 inches. So I want this to be 0.3 inches. So I got my fillet tool on, I got 0.3 inches, then I'm going to come in here and click, and you can see it when I get to the corner. You can see it putting that in there. Alright, so I'm going to say okay with that. That's all done, so we're ready to go ahead and extrude. So I'm going to hit E to extrude. My extrusion depth is, according to the drawing, 3.16. So where did I get that off the drawing? That's right here. So 3.16 is my extrusion depth. I'm going to go the opposite direction, just so visually this looks correct. So back to Project Lead the Way. I've got that done. Next, select the top of the body part, create a new sketch, draw and locate the rectangle with filleted corners to represent the whole based on the appropriate measurements. So now we are just looking, we're going to be working on this cutout here. So we are going to fillet the corners in the sketch and then extrude it. So we're going to create a 2D sketch right on the top of this guy here. And now we're going to create a rectangle just wherever on the top here. Just make sure it's contained in this rectangle is. So make sure you got your orientation correct. So in this orientation I am 1.98 tall and 1.59 deep. And then from the front edge I'm going to dimension, oh, didn't get that in there right, so from this edge to this edge, this edge to this edge. Okay, so let's try and project some geometry here. So now that I've projected that geometry, maybe I can get a hold of this. There we go. So this distance should be 0.81. And then, so center distance wise, see on this drawing here, so I got the 0.81 is right here, but what I'm looking at right now is what is the distance away from each side. So unfortunately, this is something that's breaking a rule within what we've studied here. There's a missing dimension, so we don't have a dimension as to what the distance is from to locate this left to right. So we would have to make an assumption here that it is equal on both sides. So that's the assumption I'm going to make. So I'm going to put this dimension in here, say OK for right now, and say this dimension over here. Now it's going to say this is a reference dimension. I'll say, okay, I'll accept this for now. And now what's this total distance here? So I'm going to grab my calculator. And so I could do this on the screen for you here, I guess. So if I do a calculator, I have to do a little thinking here. So we are got 0.369 plus 0.211. What is that? That's 0.58. So over 2, that's equal to 0.29. So if we want to center that up, I'm going to make this dimension 0.29. Okay, now that's centered on the part. So we're in good shape now. I didn't create these drawings originally, so we just got to work with what we've got. So if we go back to this, the radius here is 0.20. So we'll go ahead and do this fillet tool again. We want a radius of 0.20. We'll come in here and fillet those like so. Now we're ready to go ahead and extrude. So I'm going to hit E to extrude. I want to cut. So I'm going to make sure I hit this guy here. I click on my box, and then I want to extrude to a depth of 1.07. So my depth is going to be 1.07. Enter. Now that looks proper to me. So we go back to Project Lead the Way. I extruded a cut of the shape to the appropriate distance. In the same way, make the appropriate extrude cuts in the two opposing faces of the body to allow for the connector socket parts. Okay, so we're going to do this cutout and the one on the other side. So if we look at this, are these both the same? 0.24 wide, 0.57 deep, 0.93 tall. We got 0.29 from the top, 0.38 from the side. So we see 0.38 here, 0.39 here. So, you know, some of this stuff is really just poor work, to be honest with you, but we're going to have to make the most of it. So what I would suggest that we do is we're just going to take one of these dimensions and run with it. So we'll take this 0.38 here, and we'll take a look at it when we actually get into the model. So we're going to create a sketch. Let's start off with this front face here. We'll sketch on here just a rectangle. That rectangle is going to be 2.4 inches wide, tab 0.93 inches tall, enter. Now I'm going to dimension. So according to this drawing, it's 0.38 off the edge. So let's just see what happens here. 0.38. Okay, so I'm going to project the geometry first, then dimension. I'm going to say 0.38. Enter. Now I'm gonna add another dimension over here just to see what are we at. Okay, we'll say accept that because that tells me that's probably the right dimension, 0.380, because that's going to be centering it within the shape. So now the next thing we want to do is go ahead and fill it. Oh, I'm sorry, we haven't located it vertically. So what is our vertical locator? 0.29 here. So we'll go ahead and put that in here. So from here to here, it's going to be 0.29, and we'll just check that. It's going to be a reference dimension. So it's saying it's not quite symmetrical, but since I only see that in the print once, I'm going to believe that to be the proper dimension. So I'm going to go ahead and let that ride here, and my radius is 0.20 according to that. So I will go ahead and put this radius in here. Sorry, set to 0.20. Bang, 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 bang. All right, now we're going to hit E to extrude. What is our extrusion depth? It's 0.57 right here. So I'm going to say this. We're going to cut. We're going to cut a distance of 0.57, enter, it's done. Last one more cut and we are finished with this part. So we'll create a 2D sketch right here. We're basically repeating what we did before. So I'm going to hit a rectangle. This should be a little bit quicker this time. Dimension from the top to here, 0.29. From here to here, we said that was 0.38. Alright, so we've got it located. I don't see my dimensions here, so 0.24. So if this is easier for you to put it in like this instead of tabbing it when we enter it in the first place, that's okay. Alright, so that's all locked in there. You know it's locked in because the geometry is blue. Now we'll go ahead and fill it, 0.20. Then I'm going to hit E to extrude. Touch that. We're cutting. We're going 0.57 inches. Okay. And this is our part. So we're going to go ahead and save this. According to this, we will be saving it as passenger section yourinitials.ipt in the AutomoBox folder that you created up here in the first part of the procedure. Let me know if you got questions. Hopefully this helped.